I don't want him beaten. I want him out of commission. Sweep the leg. What? Sweep the leg? Okay, Sensei, whatever you say. Let's just try that. Okay, wait. How is this supposed to help anybody become a karate master? Sweeping the leg. Oh, fuck, that hurts. Well, we'll come back to that. I'm John Renton with the retro view of The Karate Kid from 1984, where you're the best around. No one's ever gonna keep them down. Except maybe some 80s ooey gooey cheese that hasn't been seen in this amount, this side of the Velveeta headquarters in Chicago, Illinois. So, yes, The Karate Kid, 1984. Why did I suddenly decide to retro review this after so long? Well, because there's a new one coming out. Why the hell not? I don't know if I'm going to bother with the sequels, because really, I think there's just this and the Jackie Chan one. Oh my god, it's Jackie Chan! I think it's just going to be those two that I do. I have seen very little of the Cobra Kai series. Honestly, I've never been the biggest Karate Kid fan. I do want to say that. Now, I recognize that this is a lot of fun. Pat Morita absolutely deserved all the accolades that he got. Ralph Macchio as Daniel LaRussa, or Daniel's son. And Elizabeth Shue. Elizabeth Shue fawning over you at this point. My word, my word. Why did Elizabeth Shue not become a bigger star, I wonder? I've always wondered that. Of course, Martin Kove as John Kreese. And then you have Johnny Lawrence. You have all the crazy, kooky characters. And it's also from the director of Rocky. And by Christ, can you tell the goddamn similarities? Arguably, Rocky is a better movie. Not to say that The Karate Kid is bad. It is fun and it is very, very quotable. But sit down and try to think of this as anything other than a standard, inspirational story narrative. That's really all it is. And also, it seemingly forgets that there's a karate tournament until, the last little bit. It's a little bit all over the place when you rewatch it. Now, that being said, it's still fun. So if you're unfamiliar with The Karate Kid, if you somehow have never seen this, you have Daniel, who moves with his mother, Lucille, to the West Coast from the East Coast, Newark, New Jersey. Who wouldn't want to get the fuck out of Jersey? Sorry, by the way, Kier, if you haven't been watching this. You're a good guy. But they move there. He runs afoul of some bullies, but also has interest from a girl, Allie, played by Elizabeth Shue. And then meets Mr. Miyagi, who will train him, wax on, wax off, and the sanding and all that, and the painting, up, down, broad strokes, all that, and everything, and training with great hand-thigh coordination. I think that's how that goes. And yes, it ends with a karate tournament, and there you are. In a movie called The Karate Kid, I know. The movie's still fun, do not get me wrong. I've never been into the lore like other people have been. So, let's talk about the fact that this movie did cost around $8 million, and that would be $24.7 million in today's money. $5 million opening, which is pretty good. $15.4 million in today's money, and $91 million in the U.S. and worldwide box office, because this was back when worldwide releases didn't get a whole bunch of, extra money, or at least most of them didn't. And that'd be $281 million in today's money. So it was successful, and then unfortunately we would go with a second one that had diminishing returns, and then a third one that really was not that well received. And then one with Hilary Swank. Now, I love Hilary Swank, but come on. Come on, who thought that was a good idea? Evidently the studio. But, yes, you have John Kreese, who's teaching Cobra Kai. You must show no mercy. You must sweep the leg. Again, how is sweeping the leg actually going to help you here? I don't understand it. Actually, it's a pretty soft broom. I could get used to doing this kind of stuff. But the whole thing is, it's fun. It has Bananarama. It has Joe Esposito, doing the soundtrack. A lot of, fun music to it. And it does have a jaunty feel to it. I do want to say, before I talk about, a few of my favorite scenes, because really this is just inspirational as far as a sports narrative, I guess you could say, because karate is a sport of, athleticism and also defense, where you really only strike when needed, if you do it right. The drunk Mr. Miyagi scene actually was going to be cut, but the director, John G. Avildsen, who did Rocky, who, by the way, is the father of the director of Queen of the Ring, Check out my review of that if you want to see how I felt about Queen of the fucking Ring. And he fought for that because he felt it added a lot to Pat Morita's character. He's right. It absolutely added a whole lot to it because you found out a little more about his backstory, why he's calm, but why he is also conflicted on the inside. And the writer going on to do films like The Fifth Element, one of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. It does make sense as to why there is an element of fun to this. So road trips were a lot jauntier and also done in montage form back in the 1980s. No, Freddy, not you getting high-yawed as you try to open the fence they apparently have at these Rosita apartment complexes. And Allie comes from a rich family. She's a rich girl. Nah. One thing I noted was about one of the Cobra Kai guys. He looked like the lead singer of Oingo Boingo. And tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm fucking wrong. God forbid if it actually was that guy. But, you know, I think Johnny Lawrence actually probably would have been less pissy if he had taken a little bit of the strain of the headband out, which I don't know. I don't know why people felt that was a cool look, because it really wasn't. But he used to be with Allie, and then he lost her because he's a little bitch. In fact, really, if you look at anybody outside of Pat Morita's character, I mean, yeah, there's Elizabeth Shue, but she's a typical, you know, heroine. Like, or typical damsel in distress or whatever, typical girl love interest. I mean, however you want to label her. Really, outside of Pat Morita's character, everybody in this movie is kind of a little bitch. Like, Ralph Macchio's character's a little bitch. Johnny's especially a little bitch. John Kreese is a great teacher, but he's also evil. But he's also stereotypically evil. I don't know, maybe I'm just being too harsh on this movie. Maybe because it was very much a product of its time. I do liken this series of movies, this franchise, so to speak, to what they did for Beverly Hills Cop. Except I would argue that Karate Kid was actually better. Because Beverly Hills Cop, even though I don't think Beverly Hills Cop was a bad movie, the second one was not very good, the third one was really terrible, and the fourth one took forever to come out. At least they did 4 of these within a 10-year period. And unfortunately, Pat Morita was not able to live long enough to be part of the 2010 version, or at least see it, and see Jackie Chan pretty much be the best part of that. More on that film later. Jaden Smith being an actor, thinking that he deserved to be an actor. Oh boy, nepotism. So it's a cruel, cruel, cruel summer. Leaving me here on my own. It's a cruel, cruel summer, and we're going to sweep the leg on our own. Again, sweeping the leg. It actually is very relaxing. I think more karate people should do this, and you actually would feel a whole lot better. But nevertheless, Daniel wants to try to get with Allie again. Elizabeth Shue at this point. I think there are a lot of guys that would have done that. And Elizabeth Shue is still ageless. She still looks good. She's been in some television shows lately. I mean, I guess after being in Hollow Man, like that's one of like the last high-profile movies that she was really in that I remember, like big budget-wise. Probably better that she moved into television because Hollow Man was not very good. And then Mr. Miyagi is kind of like, he's the landlord, but he only ever fixes the sink. I mean, apparently nobody in this apartment complex has any other issues with their appliances. But he has trees that Yokozuna loved to take care of. Bonsais! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, Yokozuna can't take care of any more of those anymore. Why am I mean? What did Yokozuna ever do to me? So, you know, basically, we have a Halloween party where Ralph dresses up like a shower for some reason, and then plays a prank on Johnny where he puts a hose in the goddamn in front of the sink into the stall to get him while he's dressed up like a skeleton. Spoopy, scary skeletons or send shivers down my spine. And that's pretty much where he gets beat up. Ralph Macchio gets beat up a lot in this. And I don't blame him for trying to get back at the bullies, but the thing is did you have an escape plan? Miyagi shows up, beats him up. And he even references John Kreese. He's like, no such thing as a bad student, only bad teachers. And, karate is here, karate is here, karate is not here. It's not in your guts. It's what you feel in your heart and your head. Technically, you would need a good core to do karate, as it were, but I digress. And Martin Kove, by the way, again, and he's a good actor. I do want to say that. And he was also, I believe, in Queen of the Ring as well. But he's like trying to do the thing. I kill, hi, ya. The idea is a truce of sorts is made. Miyagi says, I'll train him and I'll enter him in this karate tournament that is apparently happening. So wax on, wax off, all that. I mean, I'm not going to get into too many of these things, but that is one of the more iconic lines. And arcades. I miss arcades. There's like an arcade actually in town, but I mean, I haven't been to it in a while, but I need to go at some point if I ever have the time and am not watching constant, streams of movies, and also if I feel like going, because I do remember there being an arcade at a mall that we had in town, a mall in theory. Who remembers the X-Men arcade game, Welcome to Die? So there's a point where Pat Morita is trying to catch a fly with chopsticks. Mana catches a fly with chopstick, can accomplish anything. And, Ralph Macchio is able to do it. He's like, you have beginner's luck. And Pat Morita, again, really, really good in this. So, paint the fence. Paint the entire fence. He kind of uses them as slave labor, if you want to be perfectly honest. Or at least that's how Danielson sees it. But he's trying to be a bit of a father figure to him, and also it is due to him wanting to get hand-eye coordination. Allie's dad doesn't want her seeing, Daniel, so tries to set her back up with Johnny's character, and Johnny ends up, kind of humiliating, Daniel again, but then we see that she basically takes him out with a right hook because she's like, I'm kind of sick of this. So Elizabeth Shue hitting somebody. There are people that would pay good money for that. I don't have issues. Shut up. So, drunk Mr. Miyagi. This is actually a really good scene. We find out that he had a wife and he had a newborn son that were both lost. And he was in the war. And, and to think about it, this is 1984. This is a little under 40 years since the war officially ended, and Japanese Americans were really still kind of frowned upon, like kind of looked at sideways, like, and it's just eerie to think, like, just at this point, like, Pat Morita able to bring light to that just in this one scene, and good work on the director also, and then Ralph Macchio played his role well here. So that was a good scene. I'm glad the director fought for that. I think that actually added quite a bit to the movie. And again, I'm not giving this the highest goddamn grade, but it is what it is. So then they finally are going to enter the tournament, but after a little more training, the catcher's a vest, stuff like that, hitting the train in the boat earlier. That was, some good stuff. I mean, some really, really good stuff. And then we get into the tournament, finally. This is after we think that he lost Allie. You lose Elizabeth Shue, you deserve to be shamed for life, by the way. And then, you're the best around, and we get all this stuff going. It's a good montage. This tournament that still had a bigger crowd than some wrestling shows, even in 1984. And, I don't want him beaten. I want him out of commission. You're going to sweep the leg. Sweep the leg, Johnny. And then he says to one guy, I think one guy, it's either Tommy or whatever. It's like, Tommy, can you hear me? Can you feel me near you? I'll be disqualified. I want him out of commission. And then he takes the leg out, and then Mr. Miyagi does some weird shit to his leg or tries to do something, and then he ends up somehow limping along on the leg and getting into a tied position with Johnny, points-wise. And then eventually hits a crane kick, knocks him out. That's it. He wins the tournament. Pat Morita's nodding, and then we instantly cut to credits. Man, they just did not waste any time. They were like, okay, we're done. We're going to get out with the inspirational message here. Movies ended really suddenly back then, didn't they? So yes, nevertheless, we are going to sweep the leg as we go off into the middle distance. I might retro-review the other sequels, I don't know. I will for sure retro-review the 2010 version. And yes, because people have asked me to review Karate Kid Legends, why the hell not? No, I'm not going to watch Cobra Kai. If it ties into Cobra Kai, then maybe I won't actually bother because, I don't know how in the world I can because I don't know. That being said, honest to God, it's a fun movie. It still has entertainment value. And it's still a boatload of fun, but it's not great. And I look forward to the hate in the comments for that. But nevertheless, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.